Have you ever reeled from the sting of someone's actions, a hurt so precise it felt less like an accident and more like a carefully aimed arrow? Did you find yourself wondering, why? Why would they invest energy in causing me pain? And perhaps more unsettling, how do they live with themselves? How do they rationalize such behavior? These are not mere abstract ponderings. According to the pioneering psychologist Carl Jung, the roots of such deliberate harm often burrow deep into a largely unseen territory within us all: the shadow. Imagine this shadow not as a monster under the bed, but as a vast, unexplored chamber within your own mind. It's the storeroom for all the impulses, desires, and aspects of ourselves we've learned to disown or push into darkness. When this powerful, unacknowledged part of us is left to fester, it can subtly, or sometimes dramatically, commandeer our actions, transforming individuals into unwitting architects of silent, insidious cruelty. Welcome to Mindful Sphere. If you're seeking to understand the deeper currents of human behavior and cultivate your own inner wisdom, make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell. We're building a community dedicated to conscious growth, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. Now let us illuminate the shadow's influence. The shadow's intent. Decoding deliberate harm. Carl Jung proposed a compelling idea. Cruelty, especially the intentional kind, is rarely a product of sheer chance or a simple momentary lapse. When someone deliberately inflicts pain, it's not typically born from a whirlwind of confusion or a fleeting loss of emotional composure. More often, it is the shadow, that unlit portion of our psyche, pulling the strings from behind the curtain. Jung described the shadow as the repository of our repressed selves, the anger we were told not to feel, the envy we're ashamed to admit, the raw desire for dominance we believe good people don't possess. Ignoring these potent energies doesn't make them vanish. Instead, they can consolidate their power in the unconscious, waiting for an opportunity to express themselves. Intentional harm, Jung observed, almost always begins with a hidden, internal negotiation. The mind must first construct a moral permission slip before it can unleash pain upon another. Think of it as a psychological loophole. The person causing harm often ceases to see their target as a complete, complex human being. In their internal storyline, you might be recast as inherently flawed, a problem that needs fixing, or someone who, in their distorted view, deserves to suffer. Jung termed this mental distortion devaluation. It's a chilling process that effectively mutes the voice of empathy, allowing the shadow to act without the burden of guilt. He wrote that contempt is far more than a passing emotion. It's a sophisticated psychological tool that greenlights cruelty. Unlike a flash of anger, which can be hot, impulsive, and quickly regretted, contempt is a cold, methodical assessment. It's the moment an individual internally categorizes you as less than, as someone undeserving of basic human consideration. And once that critical line is crossed in their mind, almost any action can be justified. The creeping chill, contempt, and gradual erasure. What makes contempt particularly treacherous is its subtlety. It rarely explodes into view like a sudden storm. Instead, it often accumulates in the quiet corners of the mind, drop by drop, through unspoken judgments, tiny, simmering resentments, or a persistent, gnawing sense of superiority. Jung noted that the shadow finds its most fertile ground in silence and denial. When a person steadfastly refuses to confront their own inner darkness, those uncomfortable truths about themselves, that darkness doesn't just stay put. It begins to warp their perception of everyone around them. It's like looking at the world through a progressively darkening lens. Over time, this privately nurtured disdain actively seeks validation in the outside world. The individual might begin to subtly recruit others to their distorted viewpoint, artfully twisting narratives, framing your actions in the most unfavorable light imaginable, and planting insidious seeds of doubt about your very character. This is the alarming process by which private contempt metastasizes, becoming socially endorsed and reinforced. Jung issued a stark warning: when unacknowledged shadow energy seeps into the dynamics of a group, it can poison the well, creating an environment where cruelty not only feels acceptable, but can even be perceived as a collective, justified act. Suddenly, you're not just being devalued in the isolated theater of one person's mind. You're facing a slow, painful erasure in the eyes of many, a social dismantling. The art of deception, manipulation tactics of the shadow. Jung identified manipulation as one of the shadow's most sophisticated and insidious instruments. It's a chameleon. It doesn't always march in wearing the obvious uniform of hatred or aggression. Oh no, it can cleverly disguise itself as deep concern, an offering of kindness, or even a profound, meaningful silence. This is precisely why it's so incredibly difficult to detect. Jung referred to the mindset behind this as instrumental thinking. In this mode, people cease to be viewed as individuals with their own feelings and intrinsic worth. Instead, they become mere objects, tools to be used, moved or discarded to achieve a hidden agenda. But perhaps the most profoundly disturbing tactic Jung explored is what he called shadow projection. Manipulative individuals don't just set out to deceive you, they embark on a covert study of your inner landscape. They meticulously observe your core values, your deepest fears, your tenderest insecurities, not with the aim to understand or connect, but to catalogue and ultimately weaponize them. It often begins with almost imperceptible moves, a truth bent just so, a subtle backhanded compliment that leaves you feeling vaguely uneasy, a compliment strategically withheld when it's most expected or deserved. If these initial forays are not met with clear resistance, the manipulation invariably deepens. Slowly, methodically, they chip away at your sense of reality, your confidence in your own perceptions, until you find yourself adrift in a sea of doubt, questioning whether your reactions are valid at all. This is no accident. It's a chillingly effective pattern. Jung believed this psychological erosion often follows a distinct sequence. First, the distortion of reality, then systematic boundary testing to see what you'll tolerate, leading finally to the erosion of your very sense of self. When you're caught in its vortex, it feels like a bewildering fog of confusion. Viewed from the outside, however, it's a clear and calculated strategy of control. And, tragically, those who are closest to you, those who have been granted access to your emotional core, are often the ones most capable of inflicting this devastating level of psychological harm. If the insights we're sharing today are bringing a new level of clarity to your experiences, consider sharing this video with someone you know who might be navigating similar challenges. Your gesture could be a beacon for them. And if you appreciate this kind of deep, reflective content, engaging with this video through likes, comments, or sharing helps Mindful Sphere reach more people. Your support is what allows us to continue creating. Now let us delve into the most painful arena of the shadow's work. The betrayal within, when intimacy becomes a weapon. Jung issued a sobering caution. While strangers can certainly wound you, it is within our intimate relationships, with family, close friends, romantic partners, that the capacity for true inner destruction lies. Why? Because only those who have been invited into your inner world, who know the landscape of your values, the blueprint of your identity, the map of your old wounds, can target what truly matters most with such devastating precision. He called this phenomenon privilege destruction. The devastation stems not just from what they do, but from the chilling accuracy of their attacks. They know exactly where to strike because you, in trust, showed them. If you cherish honesty above all, they might weave elaborate lies with unwavering conviction. If you pride yourself on your unwavering integrity, they will subtly or overtly chip away at your character. If your reputation is important to you, they will engage in quiet campaigns of undermining. The shadow, in these instances, doesn't just throw punches wildly. It goes straight for the emotional bedrock of your being, because that's where it can inflict the most profound and lasting damage. And after the initial harm is inflicted, another insidious layer often unfolds. What Jung termed reality manipulation. The person who hurt you may skillfully twist the narrative of what happened. They might claim you completely misunderstood their intentions, or even subtly, or not so subtly, suggest that you are being overly sensitive, too emotional, or simply dramatic. This isn't just casual dishonesty, it's a targeted form of psychological warfare, often known as gaslighting. Jung understood gaslighting as a campaign designed to make you doubt your own perceptions, your memories, your sanity. It aims to silence your inner voice, your intuition, which is your most vital compass. Worse still, this often culminates in what Jung described as the double victory for the manipulator. First, they inflict the wound. Then, they skillfully maneuver you into feeling guilty or ashamed for even noticing the injury, for reacting to it, for speaking your truth. Your healing, your recovery becomes a threat to them because it challenges the narrative they've painstakingly constructed about your supposed weakness or their own blamelessness. Don't be surprised if they reappear, sometimes cloaked in an aura of concern or a desire for reconciliation. More often than not, it's not a genuine attempt to make amends, but rather a strategic move to reopen old wounds, to test if they can still exert control, to see if the dynamic of pain can be re-established. But what did Jung believe was the most potent way to respond to such deeply damaging encounters? The unbreakable spirit, the power of conscious response. Carl Jung taught that the most powerful act in the face of such psychological aggression is not an explosive counterattack, not a quest for revenge, but a conscious response. When someone inflicts deliberate harm, our most primal instinct is often to retaliate, to strike back, to mirror the pain we've received. But Jung believed that this kind of reactivity merely feeds the very shadow energies we're trying to escape, both theirs and potentially our own. It keeps us tethered to the toxic dynamic, ensnared in the very script designed to diminish us. Instead, Jung urged a different path, to respond from a place of unwavering clarity, profound self-awareness, and unshakable truth. When you can articulate your experience calmly, truthfully, and without the venom of retribution, you shatter the cycle. You refuse to play the role that was assigned to you in their distorted internal drama. You remain anchored in your values, in your integrity, and it is in that centered space that your true power resides. Jung saw healing not just as recovery, but as the ultimate act of rebellion against psychological manipulation. It is irrefutable proof that the damage inflicted did not define you, that you are more than what happened to you. It's a declaration that your inherent worth is not determined by someone else's distorted projections or their attempts to devalue you. When you choose to respond with integrity instead of succumbing to rage, When you consciously select peace over payback, you reclaim complete ownership of your story, your life. And in that moment of sovereign choice, without a single word needing to be uttered, the shadow loses its grip. Embracing the light, living beyond the shadow's reach. Carl Jung's timeless wisdom shows us that the real peril isn't solely in being hurt by others, but in allowing that hurt to dictate who we become, to calcify into bitterness, or to cause us to unknowingly perpetuate similar patterns. The shadow will always be a part of the human experience. It exists within others, and importantly, it exists as an unacknowledged potential within each of us. But we are far from powerless against its darker manifestations. With keen awareness, with unwavering intention, and with the courage to choose a conscious response, we can rise above its influence. We can choose to learn, to grow, and to integrate our own shadows, transforming their raw energy into strength and compassion. Have you navigated the complexities of intentional harm, perhaps recognizing the patterns Jung described? We invite you to share your reflections and insights in the comments below. Your story, your perspective, could be the very thing that helps someone else find clarity, validation, and the path toward their own healing. Thank you for joining us on Mindful Sphere. Don't forget to subscribe for more content that delves deep, encourages reflection, and is grounded in genuine psychological understanding. Until next time, take gentle care of your mind and diligently guard your inner peace.